Have you ever felt like you're slowly disappearing, even while you're still here? You're still waking up every morning, the same coffee, the same chair by the window, the same familiar routines, and yet something feels different. Maybe it's the silence that wasn't always so loud. Maybe it's the way people talk to you now, or don't talk at all. Maybe it's the smile you notice slipping from your face more often than you'd like. Getting older isn't just about birthdays or slower steps. It's about subtle shifts in how we're seen, how we connect, and how we carry ourselves through the world. And the hardest part, sometimes without meaning to, we start building walls instead of bridges. We begin to adopt habits not out of malice, but out of habit that quietly push people away. In this video, we're going to explore 12 hidden behaviors that tend to sneak in as we age. They're not about wrinkles or gray hair. They're about how we slowly lose our joy, our connection, and sometimes our sense of self. But here's the truth, just because these habits crept in doesn't mean we can't let them go. Stay with me, because by the end of this story, not only will you see what's been holding you back, you'll also learn how to reclaim something powerful, your warmth, your worth, and the quiet dignity of aging with grace, not regret. If any part of this touches you, please comment. 1. If not yet, comment 0. I'm here, and I'm listening. And if this message finds a place in your heart, please subscribe so we don't lose touch again. Number 1, the smile that slowly fades, losing warmth without knowing it. Sometimes people drift away not because of what we said, but because of what we stopped doing. James was always a warm soul, the kind of man who lit up every room not with loud stories or grand gestures, but with his presence. His smile had a softness to it, like the comfort of a worn flannel on a cold morning. People trusted him, felt seen by him, drawn in by the ease with which he greeted life. But something had changed. It wasn't sudden. It didn't happen on one birthday or after one hard winter. It came little by little, the way a window slowly fogs over. James stopped greeting his neighbors as often. He answered, "How are you?" with a shrug instead of a grin. He stopped holding the door open, stopped asking questions, stopped noticing when someone seemed like they needed to talk. He hadn't become bitter. He had just faded. And the saddest part, he didn't realize it. This happens to more of us than we'd like to admit. As we grow older, we retreat not out of anger or pride, but because life feels heavier. Our bodies ache, our friends are fewer, and our energy is saved for survival, not for sparkling. But in that retreat, something precious slips away our warmth, and warmth is what draws people close. It's what invites conversation. It's what makes someone want to sit beside us on the bench, not out of obligation, but out of comfort. If you've noticed people talking to you less, pulling away slightly, or just not lingering anymore, maybe it's not because they don't care. Maybe it's because the light you once shared has been dimmed by time and weariness. But that light can come back. Start with a smile even when it feels hard. Ask one more question than you usually would. Compliment the grocery clerk. Wave to the neighbor's dog. These gestures don't take much, but they say something powerful. I'm still here, and I still care. Warmth doesn't fade because we age. It fades because we stop offering it. And the beautiful truth is, you can begin again today, no matter how long it's been. But if warmth is something we accidentally let go of, there's another thing we often lose without noticing: our curiosity. And when curiosity dies, so do our conversations. Number 2, when curiosity dies, so do conversations. The day we stop being curious is the day we stop being connected. As we age, it becomes easier to fall into the rhythm of what we already know. Familiar topics, familiar routines, familiar opinions. Comfort becomes the priority and curiosity begins to fade. But something quiet is lost in that fading. Curiosity isn't just about gathering information. It's about staying open. Open to others, open to change, and most importantly, open to life. When we stop asking questions, when we stop saying, "Tell me more," we stop inviting others in. We signal that what matters to them no longer matters to us. And even if that isn't our intention, it becomes an impact. Conversations begin to shrink. Moments of connection become shorter. People share less, not because they don't care, but because they don't feel received. It's not a lack of intelligence. It's a quiet shift in energy from curiosity to conclusion, from wonder to withdrawal. True connection isn't built on how much we know, but on how deeply we care to know more. Being curious is an act of love. Ask open-hearted questions. Not just, how are you, but what's bringing you joy lately. Not just, what are you doing, but what makes that matter to you. This small shift in how we speak can bring back the warmth in how we relate. Curiosity doesn't belong only to the young. It belongs to anyone willing to stay awake to the world and to each other. But even as curiosity fades, another habit begins to rise, one that wears the mask of wisdom, yet often feels like judgment. Let's explore that next. Number 3, criticism in disguise, how advice can wound. Sometimes, the words meant to protect are the ones that hurt the most. With age often comes wisdom and a deep desire to share it. It feels natural to offer guidance, to protect those we love from the mistakes we've already lived through. But without care, that wisdom can begin to sound like judgment. Advice, no matter how well-meaning, can land like a blow when it isn't asked for, especially when it comes without empathy, especially when it arrives before listening fully. What may feel like just being honest can easily become a source of pain, not because the words are cruel, but because they feel cold, one-sided, or imposed. As we grow older, it's tempting to believe that experience gives us permission to always speak. But experience should bring discernment, not dominance. The truth is most people don't need to be corrected. They need to be seen. They need to be heard. They need to feel that their journey matters, even if it looks different than ours. Before offering advice, pause. Ask, is this a moment to guide or a moment to simply listen? Am I sharing to connect or to control? Support sounds different when wrapped in softness. Words heal when they come from respect, not righteousness. Sometimes the most loving thing we can say is, I trust your process, and I'm here if you ever want to talk. That sentence builds bridges. Unsolicited advice often builds walls. And while it's easy to speak to others' lives, there's one area we often ignore the most, the way we care or fail to care for ourselves. Let's talk about that next. Number 4, neglecting the temple. When we stop caring for our appearance, how we show up for ourselves teaches the world how to treat us. There is a quiet shift that sometimes occurs as the years go by, a loosened routine, a skipped morning grooming, a shrug at the mirror. It often starts small, choosing comfort over form, letting go of little habits of care, not out of laziness, but from fatigue, from the feeling that it doesn't matter anymore. But it does matter, not because others are watching, but because you are. And the way you treat your outer self sends signals to the parts within. Appearance is not about vanity, it's about dignity. It's a declaration: I still value this life. I still care enough to be present in it. When you stop showing up for your reflection, something deeper begins to withdraw. A little brightness fades, not because of age, but because of absence. Caring for your appearance isn't about looking younger. It's about honoring the person you've become. It's saying, I am still here. I am still worth showing up for. Wear what feels good. Wash your face like it's a prayer. Brush your hair not because you must, but because you deserve that tenderness. Even small rituals like putting on earrings or choosing a clean shirt are acts of reverence. And reverence reminds us we are still alive. We are still beautiful. We are still becoming. But while we may let go of our image, some of us let go of something even more vital, our connection to others. And in that quiet withdrawal, loneliness begins to take root. Let's talk about that next. Number 5, the danger of withdrawing. Too much alone doesn't mean at peace. Solitude can heal, but isolation quietly steals. There is a kind of solitude that heals. Time spent in quiet can nourish the spirit, help us reflect, and bring us closer to ourselves. But solitude has a shadow side. When chosen, it can be sacred. When slipped into unconsciousness, it can become isolated. It's easy to withdraw a little more each day, to cancel plans, to stop calling, to sit in stillness that once felt peaceful but now feels hollow. We may tell ourselves it's fine, that we prefer being alone, that we don't need anyone. But over time, the absence of connection can become a quiet ache, a heaviness that lingers in the heart. Not because we lack company, but because we lack presence. Connection doesn't always require deep conversation or large gatherings. It can be a simple hello, a short phone call, a walk shared with someone. What matters is not how many people we're with, but how open we remain to others. Withdrawal is not always a conscious decision. Sometimes it's fatigue. Sometimes it's fear. Sometimes it's grief disguised as disinterest. But the longer we pull away, the harder it becomes to return. If you've noticed a growing distance between yourself and the world, pause gently. Ask, am I protecting my peace or avoiding pain? Reach out today. Even a small step, a message, a visit, a wave can reopen doors you didn't realize were closed. You were not meant to age in silence. You were meant to age in connection. And sometimes we withdraw, not just emotionally, but spiritually by shutting out the people who want to love us. Not because they stop caring, but because we stop letting them in. Let's explore that next. Number 6, pride that becomes a prison, refusing help and pushing away love. Sometimes the hardest 3 words to say are, I need help. There is a quiet dignity in doing things for ourselves. For many, independence is a lifelong source of pride, earned, fought for, and deeply protected. But there comes a point when independence, once empowering, becomes isolating. Refusing help may begin as self-reliance, but over time, it can send another message: I don't need you. And when we repeat that message out loud or in silence, people start to believe it. Eventually, they stop offering. Not because they don't care, but because they no longer feel welcome. The tragedy is not in needing help. It's in pushing love away in the name of strength. To accept help is not to admit defeat. It's to allow connection. It's to say, I trust you to hold me. Even just for a moment, many fear becoming a burden. But the deeper fear left unspoken is the fear of being left out entirely, of being needed by no one, of vanishing quietly into self-sufficiency. Letting someone help you is not a weakness. It's a generous act. It gives others a chance to love, to care, to serve not out of pity, but out of a relationship. You don't lose dignity by accepting support. You lose it when you pretend not to feel lonely. Try opening a small door. Say yes when someone offers to carry something. Say thank you with softness. Let a loved one stay just a little longer. In doing so, you invite warmth back in. And that warmth reminds you you were never meant to do this alone. And while pride builds walls around us, another hidden habit builds clutter within us, not in our homes only, but in our hearts. Let's talk about that next. Number 7, clinging to the past when memories turn into walls. Memories should be windows to look through, not walls to hide behind. Our memories are sacred. They hold the people we've loved, the places we've been, the laughter we've shared. They're windows into who we've become and reminders of what truly matters. But sometimes, without realizing it, we begin to live more in our memories than in our present. We replay old moments so often that they become more vivid than the life unfolding around us. We find comfort in what we already know, and slowly, we start resisting what's new. It can feel safer, easier, but in truth, it's a quiet kind of grief. Because while the world moves forward, we stand still. There's a difference between honoring the past and being trapped in it. Holding on to memories shouldn't mean closing the door to new ones. And yet, that's what often happens when we surround ourselves only with reminders of what was. We unconsciously tell ourselves there's nothing more to come. But life isn't done offering you beauty. Not yet. The heart doesn't forget. But it does long for something to look forward to. When you feel stuck in nostalgia, ask yourself, what's one thing I can do today that I've never done before? Even a small act, a walk in a new park, listening to a new song, calling someone unexpected can gently reopen the window to the present. Let your memories be a light, not a prison. Let them give you strength, not sorrow, because no matter how rich your past was, there are still sunsets ahead worth witnessing, still songs waiting to stir your soul. And while living in the past keeps us from new joys, another quiet habit keeps us from true peace holding on to bitterness. Let's explore that next. Number 8, bitterness that builds walls when grudges become your shadow. You cannot carry peace and resentment in the same heart. There's a kind of pain that lingers long after the wound is closed. It doesn't shout, it doesn't bleed, but it changes you. That pain is called resentment, and as we age, it's one of the heaviest loads we can carry because it doesn't just weigh down the mind. It shapes how we see others, how we speak, and how we connect. Grudges start small, a sharp word left unresolved, a moment of betrayal never talked about, and slowly, they turn into thick emotional walls, brick by brick. You might tell yourself, I've forgiven, but I haven't forgotten. But what we often don't realize is that unhealed anger echoes in everything we do. It shows up in our silences, in the way we flinch at kindness, in how we expect disappointment, even when joy is offered. Bitterness is a thief. It steals the softness from our voice, the warmth from our laughter, and the light from our relationships. But here's the truth. Letting go doesn't mean pretending it never hurts. It means choosing to be free from its grip, not for their sake, but for your. Forgiveness is not forgetting. It's remembering with peace instead of pain. So how do we begin? We start by telling the truth to ourselves. This still hurts. And then, gently, we open the door to release. You can write a letter you'll never send. You can speak the words out loud in an empty room. You can cry. But most importantly, you must choose, will I keep drinking the poison? Or will I finally set it down because you deserve peace more than you deserve justice? You deserve lightness more than you deserve being right. And when you let go, you make space for joy to return. And as we clear bitterness from our hearts, we may begin to notice something else weighing us down, something even quieter. But just as limiting the belief that we're no longer useful, let's talk about that next. Number 9, speaking harshly about yourself, the invisible erosion of self-worth. When you speak unkindly about yourself, your soul listens even if no one else does. Have you ever caught yourself saying things like, I'm just an old fool. I can't do anything right anymore. My memory's a joke. I'm useless now. Sometimes we laugh after we say these things, as if they don't mean much, as if we're just being realistic or modest. But the truth is, the words we say about ourselves, especially out loud, shape the way we experience our lives. We may not even notice it at first. It starts as a joke, a passing comment. But over time, these words become part of how we see ourselves. And worse, they teach others how to see us, too. If you constantly speak of yourself as weak, broken, forgetful, or irrelevant, people start to treat you that way. And eventually, you start believing it deep down. This habit might feel small, harmless, but it slowly erodes your dignity. It creates an inner environment where self-love withers and shame quietly blooms. You see, Ray, we wouldn't dare speak this way to a beloved friend. We wouldn't call them useless, or a burden, or pathetic. And yet, we speak this way to ourselves, every day. So I ask you gently, when did you start thinking you weren't enough? When did your voice stop being your ally and become your enemy? It's never too late to change the way you talk to yourself. In fact, that change more than any medication or advice might be the key to feeling alive again. What if you replaced I'm useless with I'm doing my best today? What if you said, I forget things sometimes, but I'm still worthy of love? What if you looked in the mirror and instead of seeing decline, you saw someone who has survived, who still shows up, who still matters? The soul listens, my friend. and it longs to hear words of kindness from you. So today, I will begin again. Speak to yourself like someone who deserves tenderness, because you do. And when your inner voice softens, something surprising happens. You begin to trust yourself again, and you stop giving up before life has a chance to surprise you. Number 10, refusing to ask for help. The wound beneath the silence. Asking for help isn't weakness, it's the bridge back to belonging. There's a kind of silence that grows heavier with age. It's not the peaceful kind, the one we find in early mornings or quiet walks. It's the kind born from pride and fear, from a lifetime of taking care of others, from believing that strength means never needing anything, and so we stop asking for help. We say, I don't want to be a burden. I'll figure it out. This isn't anyone's problem but mine. And behind those words, what we really mean is I'm scared of being seen as weak. I'm afraid they'll stop respecting me. I don't know how to ask anymore. But here's what I want you to hear. Really hear, asking for help does not make you weak. It makes you human. And more importantly, it makes you reachable. Because when you never ask, people begin to assume you don't need them. They step back. They stop offering. And soon, everyone stands at a polite distance, while inside, you are quietly drowning in needs no one can see. And it's not just you who suffers. When you shut people out, they begin to question their place in your life. They want to help. They want to feel needed. They want to love you in practical ways, but they can't if you keep saying I'm fine when you're not. There's dignity in being honest. There's strength in letting someone carry a little of your weight. What if asking for help was not a sign of failure, but a gesture of trust? What if letting someone bring you dinner, or drive you to the doctor, or simply sit with you on a hard day was your way of saying, I still believe we belong to each other? Because the truth is, no one gets to the end of life saying, I wish I had done it all alone. We remember the hands that held us, the voices that answered when we called, the moments when we didn't have to pretend to be strong. So if you've been holding it all in, I invite you to let it out. Gently. Call someone. Ask for one small thing. Not because you're failing, but because you're still human. And because connection, in any form, is always worth the courage it takes to reach out. And when we learn to open that door again, to let people in, we also begin to unlock something else, the belief that we still deserve love, support, and a life that doesn't feel so lonely. Number 11, holding on to regret. The heavy bag you don't have to carry. You cannot rewrite the past, but you can stop it from writing about your future. We all have regrets. That's part of being human. But the way we carry them, especially as we grow older, can shape the very quality of the years we have left. Regret in itself isn't the enemy. It can be a teacher, a whisper from our past reminding us of what mattered. But when regret becomes something we hold on to cling to, even it begins to weigh us down in ways that are hard to explain. It makes us second-guess our worth. It dims the joy of the present. And worst of all, it convinces us we're no longer allowed to change. I should have done better. I should have said something. If only I had chosen differently. These thoughts echo in the stillness of morning, or in the silence just before sleep. And over time, if we're not gentle with ourselves, these regrets begin to shape our identity, not as a person who has lived, but as someone who has failed. But here's the truth. Regret doesn't mean you failed. It means you've grown. It means you've learned to feel deeply enough to wish you had done better. That's not a weakness. That's wisdom. The trouble comes when we confuse the past with our present value. Let me say this clearly. You are not your mistakes. You are not the decisions you didn't make. You are not defined by the one thing you wish you could go back and undo. You are still here. You still get to shape how this story ends. Not by erasing what came before, but by writing something softer now. What would it feel like to put down the burden of regret? To say to yourself, yes, that happened, but I will not punish myself anymore. What would it look like to forgive yourself not because you forgot, but because you deserve peace? Forgiveness is a gift you give to your own heart. And as we age, there is no greater kindness than releasing ourselves from the chains of what might have been. So I invite you, talk to your past self, not with blame, but with compassion. Tell them, I know you tried. I see how hard it was. And I love you anyway because every version of you got you here, to this moment, to this breath. And this moment is where healing begins. And once regret begins to loosen its grip, what often takes its place is a gentle kind of peace, one that lets laughter come easier and the days feel lighter. Number 12, giving up before you even begin. Surrendering to age too soon is not wisdom, it's quiet self-abandonment. Among all the quiet habits that slowly distance us from life, this one may be the most invisible, yet the most heartbreaking. Giving up before we even try. It doesn't always look dramatic. Sometimes it shows up in subtle ways. We say, I'm too old for this, or that's not for someone like me anymore. Or we look at something new, an invitation, an opportunity, a simple idea, and we say to ourselves, why bother? I understand why we do it. After a certain age, the world stops asking us to participate. People stop expecting us to change, to start something, to try, and slowly, we begin to believe it, too. We tell ourselves it's more dignified to stop dreaming. That rest is all we deserve now. Those beginnings are for younger people. But here's the truth I want to share with you gently. The day we stop believing in beginnings is the day we start disappearing from our own story. We don't have to chase after big goals anymore. That's not what this is about. It's not about proving anything to anyone. It's about remembering that we are still alive, still capable of discovering joy, still able to say yes to something new, even if it's small. Giving up before trying isn't just about actions. It's a mindset, a way we quietly tell life, I'm no longer part of this. But that's a lie. As long as you're breathing, you're part of this world. Your story matters. Your energy still touches people. And your courage to keep showing up just as you are can still change everything. So, the next time that little voice inside says, don't bother, too late, not for you, pause, and ask yourself, what if I just try standing up with more hope? Try learning something small and new. Try walking to the park instead of sitting in the same chair. Try saying yes to life in your own quiet way. Because giving up before beginning, that's not who you truly are. You didn't survive decades of life to now shrink yourself into invisibility. You are not done growing. You are not done discovering. You are not done living. So, take one small step, just one, and watch how the world begins to open up again. Even in your 70s, 80s, or 90s, there is still something waiting for you. Something meaningful, something real, something that reminds you that you still matter. So, dear friend, we have walked together through many reflections on the habits that quietly creep in, the patterns that keep us stuck, and the small shifts that can bring us back to joy. Aging isn't easy. Let's be honest. There are aches, losses, and long stretches of silence. There are mornings when getting out of bed feels like lifting the weight of the world, and evenings when the house feels too quiet and your thoughts echo too loudly. But if you've made it this far, if you've listened to every word, every moment of this video, then you already have something. Many forget: a heart still open, still learning, still reaching out. That is your strength. You see, the world might try to tell us that after a certain age, we are finished, that our time has passed, that we are meant only to rest and fade quietly into the background. But I say nonsense. There is no expiration date on growth, on connection, on healing. In fact, some of the most meaningful transformations happen after 60, 70, even 80. You are not done yet. There are still bridges to mend, still laughter to share, still mornings to wake up with purpose, still people who need your presence, your wisdom, your love. You are still here, and that means life is still calling to you. Now, I won't pretend that change is easy. Letting go of grudges, asking for help, opening yourself up to joy again, That takes courage. Chitties. But you've already shown courage just by being here, by listening, by facing truths that are hard to hear but impossible to ignore. And maybe something in these words has stirred a memory, a thought, a decision. Maybe today is the day you pick up the phone and reconnect with someone you've drifted from, or the day you say yes to that walk, to that dinner invitation, to that long overdue doctor's appointment. These aren't grand gestures. They're quiet, brave acts of hope, and they matter more than you know, because healing doesn't always look like a miracle. Sometimes it looks like choosing to speak more kindly to yourself, to make your bed, to open the curtains, to wear that bright scarf you've been saving. It looks like forgiving what can't be changed and embracing what still can. And here's the secret most people don't talk about. Healing is contagious. When you change, even just a little, you give others around you permission to do the same. Your children, your friends, your neighbors. You become a beacon, not because you're perfect, but because you're honest, vulnerable, and still willing to grow. So let me ask you now, what was one thing in this story that made you pause, just for a moment? Please share it in the comments. I read every word, and your story, your voice matters more than you think. If this video touched your heart, I invite you to subscribe so we don't lose touch. Click the bell so you'll know when the next story arrives. Because in the next chapter, we'll talk about something even more intimate, how to rebuild your sense of meaning when life feels smaller than it used to. Until then, take care of your heart. Speak gently to yourself. Reach out, even if your hands tremble. This life, it's still yours, and there is beauty still waiting, just around the corner. I'll be waiting for you in the next story.